In this lesson, we'll be learning how to create CSS using Adobe Dreamweaver. I'm going to start by initiating a site. I have an empty shell of a root folder on my desktop, and I'm just going to go and set that up beforehand before we even do anything. And you should always have a site set up before you start to actually implement content and start building pages. So I'm just going to go up to New Site, and I'll just call this CSS Lessons. This will be the title. That's what you would see in the tab. And of course, I'm just going to drill down here for that folder. Okay, so I do have it on my desktop, and I had a folder called Web1, I think, down here, yes. And I'll just establish this folder called root_CSS and choose that. There we go. And that's all I need to do to formally set up a site in Dreamweaver. Click Save. And now I should see that reflected over here in my Files panel. All right, if you see all your computer drives and that in here, that's a reminder you need to set up your site formally. That has a lot of critical influence on how your links are created. Okay. Now I also put images into my images folder beforehand, and I created an empty CSS folder. So I think the first thing we'll do is just initiate our first HTML file, and in fact it'll be the only one for this lesson, and of course save it in our root folder. So I'm going to go up File, New, and again I'll just give it a page title. I'll call it CSS lesson. And I actually misled you when we were putting the title in before. That was the title that will show up in your list of websites here. This is the title that will show up on the HTML page. Click Create. Now I've created it, but it's critical that I save it before I apply any content or do anything to it. So I'm going to immediately do a Save As. And in here, you should see a button called Site Root. I think I'm in the root, but just to be sure, click Site Root, and that will definitely drive you to the root folder for this website. And I'm just going to name this index.html and click Save. All right, so I formally now have a web page in my root folder, and I can see it over here, right there. Okay, and we're going to mostly click in Design View to generate our content today. So having said that, make sure in your 3 tabs up here that you are not on Live View but are on Design. So if it's on Live, switch it over to Design, please. Like that. Okay. Now I'm going to just click in the page, and there's my insert cursor right there. I'm just going to put in some content first, maybe a heading and a couple of paragraphs, a list, a table, and a couple of pictures. Okay, we can do that really fast in Dreamweaver. So let's just start here. I'm just going to type it in. Heading. And I'll say heading 1 so you know what it is. I won't declare it yet. Okay, let me just go down the list here. And I'll say paragraph goes here. Now that is a paragraph because when you hit a return, it automatically generates a paragraph, as you can see here. Okay. Let me make a list here as well, maybe. Now to create a list, you just type in your lines as paragraph lines, and then we'll consolidate them as a list as a second step. So I'm just going to type in list item 1, return. Yeah, just learn how to spell here, list item. Okay, click back on the line below. List item 2, return, list item 3, return. Okay. I think I'll style these up before starting to add pictures and tables and things. All right. So since I was just talking about the list, let's just highlight those 3 lines that we want to put in a list. And we do that with the Insert tab. So let's go over to Insert. And I'm going to choose Unordered List. There's ordered and unordered. Unordered is the one with the bullets. And there we go. We have a list created. You can see it in your code view here. Okay. I'm going to click just after that last line and just remind you with lists, if I hit return, it generates the next line in my list. So to get out of this, basically to escape from it, I have to hit return once and then twice. And that closes off the list, as you can see here, and initiates a brand new paragraph. So I'm just going to say, here is another paragraph. All right, period. Let me just fix my spelling here. All right, so let's go back to the heading 1. There's a few ways I can convert this, but first I must select it. And I have my properties docked down here. I'm going to suggest if your properties is not open, go up to Window, choose Properties, and it will naturally float when you initiate it, but just grab it by the top bar, drag it down below till you see the thick blue line, and dock it at the bottom. You're going to need properties for a lot of the things that I'm showing you. Okay, so again, back to heading 1 being selected. I could go over to my insert and choose one of the headings here. That would work. Or I could go down to my properties format and choose it here. Two ways to get to the same place. All right, so now that is technically surrounded by H1 tags, as you see in the code view. I'm going to save my file. I've done already quite a bit here. So I've got a heading 1, paragraph, a list, and another paragraph. Let's go down here, and I'm going to hit return. And I'm going to introduce a photo. All right, I'm going to go over to my Files tab. In fact, actually, back on Insert, I could go Image. Why don't I do it from here this time? And the next one I'll do from the Files tab. So Insert, Image. It does give you a search dialog box. I'm going to go into Images. And let's say the picture of the puppy. We click Open. And boom, there it is. Okay, again, I'm going to save. Okay, so I'm just going to click on the right side of the puppy picture, hit my return key, which does bring me down to a new paragraph. I'm going to hit one more return. It does initiate, another blank paragraph. And I'm going to introduce a table here. So back on the Insert, Table. And I actually will keep it at 2 rows, 3 columns. It's setting accordingly because that's what I'd set the last time I was making the table. 500 pixels wide, sure, and border thickness. I'm going to increase the border thickness to say 10. And then make sure cell padding and cell spacing is at 0, header is at none. So 2 rows, 3 columns, 500 pixels wide, a thick border of 10 pixels. I click OK, and there it is. Okay, yeah, that's quite a thick border. So I'm going to click on the right side of that as well, hit my return key. And here I'll actually bring in the photo using a second method, which is the drag and drop. And we do that from our Files panel. I just need to toggle open my Images folder. And let's bring in the picture of the husky this time. Okay, and I'll just drag it there. And now the picture of the husky is down below. And there's a paragraph in between I can see, according to the code here. Okay, I'm just going to save that. And I think we have enough content here. Just as a review, why don't I make a hypertext link at the bottom here? So I'm just going to hit return. I'm going to say link to Dan's lessons. Now that's going to be an external link, so I'll just type it in manually. But to start with, I must highlight what I want to appear as the link. And then down here in my properties, in the link window, I'm just going to type in https://djolessons.com. And of course, you could have gone out and copied a web URL and then pasted it in here as well. Okay, I'm going to hit my tab key to enter that. There we go. And I'm going to save. I've just clicked back in the design view here, and I'm going to save. Okay, so we've got plenty of content. Now let's cut to the objective of the lesson, which is to create CSS. So what I propose to do is to do a couple of examples of some selector types, class styles, and ID. Okay, so let's start with the heading. I want to change that heading to red. We're just going to do a color change. So we create our CSS external style sheets and all the styles inside of this tab called CSS Designer. Now when you open it up, it's kind of got 4 blocks of areas if you're starting from the top, source, the @media, selectors, and properties. We're going to skip @media for a few lessons, and we'll get back to it later. It's a little more advanced. It's for making websites that can have unique layouts, for example, for phones versus desktops versus tablets and so on. But for source, we do want to initiate a new external style sheet, and that's where we would start it. And you initiate it with the little plus sign. So it says Add CSS Source. Click it. Now I want to create a new external sheet, so I'm going to create a new CSS file. If one already existed, I could attach it this way. Or I can have my styles internal, which is not typically a best practice, but it's definitely doable, and sometimes it does make good sense. But I want to create an external style sheet, so I'm going to choose create a new CSS file. It pops up this little window. It's showing me that it will be a link type. Don't change that. We're just going to browse to where we want to put it, and then we'll name it there. So browse. I have a folder for CSS. I'm going to click inside of there, and I'll just give it a name. I'm going to be very obvious here, css.css, and just click save. Actually, you know what? Before I click save, let me just click back on this site root, and that shows you the root folder. Just to ensure I'm in the right place, I will double click again on the CSS folder. That's where it's going to go. I've already named it, so I don't have to name it again. Sorry for that little confusion. I just wanted to point out that the site root button does take you to the top level of your setup site, and from there you can go deeper into folders if you need to. Okay, so I'm saving this into the folder called CSS. Save. Then I click OK here, and it has been initiated. I can show you quickly over in Files. If I open up my CSS folder, there it is. Okay, so let's go back to the Designer tab. And so I have a file, but it's empty right now. It's empty. But I'll show you up here another thing that has changed is you do now have a link directly to that code. So if I click over here, that is my CSS code. There's nothing in there except this initial char set UTF-8, and this is my HTML code. So you can toggle back and forth with your code views. Okay. So having said that, let's go back over to the CSS Designer panel, and I'm just scrolling up here. I want to change the headings and make them red. And speaking of dogs, there go my dogs. Right on cue. All right, so I've got my file here. I want to add a selector. So we go over to this plus sign, and it does pop up. Basically, it pops up wherever my insert is. It's going to pop up the nearest element. So that's saying paragraph inside a body. Very specific. You can make very complex selectors. They're known as compound selectors, but we're going to stick to simple selectors. And I want to have one that will address my H1 tag. So I'm simply going to delete that and replace it with H1 manually. You see the code hints do come up when you start typing. So I'm selecting H1, and I will hit my return key. There we go. So what that initiated was the next window called Properties. Now typically when you start, it probably has the Show Set check mark on. That will show you any current properties of the selector. Since it's brand new, there are no properties yet. So I suggest unchecking Show Set, and that reveals all of the properties. Okay, so there's 5 categories here. They are all available through the scroll. I just want to change the text feature, so I'm going to click text. All right, and you can see all the properties here: color, font family, font style, a whole lot of different aspects to apply to text. I just want to change the color. So I'm going to go over to the color property, choose the color picker, and I said I wanted it red, so I'm just going to pick a shade of red here. And if I want to save it in the picker, I can hit my plus sign. All right, looks like I already saved one before, very similar. And to engage that, I have to hit my return key. All right, now you might have noticed up here, it automatically updated. All right, because that's a selector looking for any H1 tag. As soon as it sees those tags, it will automatically apply whatever properties are applied under that selector. Okay, this time we have one property. So let's just save our CSS file. To do that, we typically go File, Save All, which saves not only the HTML, but it also saves the CSS. Now let's take a look at that CSS. There you have it. There's your H1 declaration. Here are your curly braces. There's your property, and there's the value of the property, which in this case is an hexadecimal number. All right, so there we go. There is our CSS external style sheet with its first style applied. And you can see it manifest live on your HTML page. So I'm going to click back to the source code, which is our HTML. Okay, and let's do one maybe for the images. So I'm going to hit plus over here. And actually, let me just delete that for a second. Oh, I didn't want to delete that though. It looks like I accidentally deleted my heading 1, so I'm going to quickly put it in here. H1, hit my return key. Yeah, you need to be careful with that delete key. And we'll just pick that red, hit my return key. Good to go. Except it shouldn't be HI, it should be H1. Once I spell it correctly, H1, yeah, not high. There we go. And now it manifested. That was unintentional, of course, but you can see how quickly you can do and undo things. But yes, the undo doesn't seem to work. It might work if I was in that view. I'd have to try that another time. Okay, so there's my H1. What I was about to do was to select a photo. Because as I said, when you have something selected, it will automatically put that tag in your selector. So let's click the plus sign. Now it's saying there's an image in a paragraph in the body. I could keep it that specific, but I don't want to. I want it just to be general for images. So I'm just going to delete this part and just keep image, IMG, hit my return key, and apply style. So I'm going to put a border on it. I think I'll put a purple border on it. So our borders are this third icon in. And I'm going to set the width. I'm going to go with pixels. I'm going to make it quite large. I'm going to manually type in 16 pixels. 16 pixels, hit my return key. And you can see it there already in black. I'm going to change the style. Well, I'm going to officially declare it solid. And change the color. And I'll go with sort of a purplish color here. All right, hit my return key. And there we have our nice thick purple border. Again, if I go to my CSS tab up here, I see a selector for images, border, and it did the shortcut, 16 pixels, solid type, and the color. Okay, I definitely want to save all here. Anytime you do a style change, do save all. Okay, I'm going to go back to my source code. So I've got two selectors, an H1 and an image. Now these two type automatically update when they confront those tags on your web page. Okay, and I can edit them. Why don't I go and change the color for the image just to demonstrate? So there's my image. Now, having created some style in there, it might make sense to click show set, and that shortens the list to just what's applied to it. All right, that actually cuts to the chase nicely. And I'm just going to go to my colors, and maybe I'll make it it's kind of a blue instead, a steel blue. Hit my return key, and there's an instant update to my CSS. And it does update automatically on my web page. And we'll just go save all. So again, there are two selector types. So let's create a third one. I've clicked in an empty area here to deselect. And we're going to create a class style. So to kind of manually create a class style, you hit your selector plus button. And I didn't mean to hit it twice there, so let me just highlight this one. Click inside of it. Double click inside of it. Just going to delete that. And to create a class style, you have to expressly start with a period. So dot, and let me call this one, maybe I'll call it husky border. The other photo is the husky, and I'll apply it to that, husky border. Okay, hit my enter key. Again, I'm going to emphasize to create a class style, you start it with a period. Okay, now I'm going to uncheck show set. And I'll go over to my border properties, and I'll create a width. I'm going to make it smaller than that first one, so maybe 10 pixels. Hit my enter key. Style will be solid. And color, let's see here. Maybe we'll go with the purple on this one. Okay, enter. Now, nothing's changed yet because it's a class style. And remember, class style needs to be applied. So there's a second step to this. And if I scroll down to our husky picture, right now it's being dictated by the general image selector, right? So both my images have the blue border, and that's fine. Once I apply class to this element, that class declaration will be closer to the element, therefore it will take over any other declared class styles, or the properties within it will take over any of those properties that may conflict. You can actually blend and merge in the hierarchy. So let's select the puppy, the husky image, and this is where I would apply the class style, down in my properties. Okay, and you see here there's a section called class. Any properties that exist in that style sheet are going to appear on this list, and there's only the one, husky border, and there you see it, and you see right here in the code view, class equals husky border. And again, that overrides any other properties that might be outside of this element, outside of this line of code. Again, I'm going to do save all. Okay, so there's our class style. Let's do an ID now. And maybe we'll apply the ID to this table. So I'm going to create another new selector type. Now the ID, very similar to the Husky border class style, is that it starts with a special character, and for the ID it's the hashtag. So hashtag, I'll call it table border. And let me just spell that correctly. Table border. You can't have any spaces in these names, by the way. Table border. I'm going to hit my return key. And now I can just attribute some properties to the ID called table border. You know what? I think I'm just going to go to the borders and just change the color, just to keep this brief. Okay, and let's go with a green. I'll go with a sort of bright green here. And that's step one. So I've created the ID in my style sheet. We can actually look at the code here. There's the ID right there. But I want to apply it to a specific element, and it's the table, so I do need to select the table. And again, down in my properties, it's over to the right in this case, but there's our list for any class that exists. Oh, and this is an ID. Sorry, it's not in the class, it's the ID. And the ID are actually in this little window under here. And there is table border. So any existing ID will appear as a list of choices here. Again, it's the far left. It's a little less obvious because it's not marked as ID, but table border. And you see, as soon as I declare that ID, and you can see it under here, table ID equals table border, it will take on any of the properties attributed to the hashtag table border property in the selectors. Okay, I definitely want to save all here. And maybe we'll do one more here and attribute it to the list. Okay, so I'm just going to expand this out here. I'll actually just stretch this upwards since I don't need the @media today. I'm going to add a new selector. And it looks like it adds the previous one, probably because it's selected on the page right now. And I'm going to create a class style. So it starts with a period. And I will call it list style, just to be kind of blatantly obvious. List style, hit my enter key. Okay, what's the list style going to incorporate? I think I will go to the text properties, font family. Let's see here. Just pick another font. I'm going to pick Gill Sans because it's available to me. And we'll change the color. We'll go with kind of an orange color up here, rusty orange. Make it a little darker there. Hit my enter key for that. And my dogs are being good guard dogs, I think. And let's see what else here. Maybe the size. All right, so size, I'll actually be very specific and establish it at maybe 16 pixels. Hit my return key or my enter key. Now I have to go to the second step, which is to select the table. And then, you know what, let me show you another way to select, which we haven't gone into in this lesson. I'm going to click inside of the table, anywhere inside of that table. Or not table, I'm sorry, list, inside of that list. Okay, having selected that, we actually have a list selector down here. It shows me that there's a list item inside of a table, inside of the body. So I'm going to select the table tag right here, and that selects the whole table. Then I'm going to apply the class to that whole table right here, and I do see it right here, and it does kind of manifest. If there's colors, you will see it. List style. All right, so it changed the font, it changed the color, and it dictated the size. So let me just do a save all. And I guess I'll do one more ID, and I'll actually attach it to this paragraph. So for the lesson, I'm going to get you to do 2 selectors, 2 IDs, and 2 class styles. So let's make one more here. We'll make this an ID as well. Remember, ID starts with hashtag. Hashtag, and I'm going to say a special paragraph. It's very long, but there we go. Paragraph. I'll just make sure I spell it right. Paragraph. Okay. And hit my return key. Special paragraph. And let's see here. Again, I don't want to get too crazy, but I will go to my text properties. I'll give it a color. And we'll make it kind of sky blue, aqua. Font family, let's see here. Let's go with impact. Again, just go with fonts that are on your computer. These fonts are loaded on my computer, so I can access those. And let's see, font style. You know, I'll make it italic. And font size. Again, let's make this kind of big. Maybe I'll go 20 pixels, enter. Okay, so I need to do part 2, which is to apply it. So again, I'm going to go and click inside of the desired paragraph, and I can see the P tag right there. I'll select that and then apply that class. Oh, sorry, ID. I keep forgetting ID. So ID is right under here, and it actually is listed for the text elements, special paragraph. There we go. I'll click away, and you can see it has adopted the properties for that specific ID. All right, I'm just going to do a save all. And we'll preview this in the browser very quickly. I'll go to Firefox since I have that open. And here it comes. Oh, I think it went to another page. Let me try that again. Firefox. There we go. Let me just shrink my browser. And there are all the elements styled. Okay, I didn't style the link, but you could have. So what I want in this is for you to create 2 selectors that will directly target 2 different tags, 2 class styles, and 2 ID styles. Okay, and if I go to the code view, view page source. Oh, I can't do it from here because it shows me my Dreamweaver source. So I'll just close that. And if I go out to my external page, I can launch it from here to see the actual code in browser. View page source. There's the actual HTML, and you can always click on the CSS as well, and there's all my HTML code. All done on my behalf through Dreamweaver. Okay, so that's your CSS exercise for today.